cool job, Aurora Public Library's interview series where we talk to professionals who perform interesting work. I'm Sam Marcello, and with me this time we have Megan Kearney. Hi, Megan, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am so excited to talk to you. I'm in a great mood.
Oh, it's mutual, darling.
Oh, so great, darling. All right, so just to give everyone a quick little biography about Megan, Megan is a Toronto-based cartoonist with a background in animation. So cool. She's worked as a writer, illustrator, and educator, and is a frequent guest at conventions across North America. RIP cons, because we've not had many of those, since the pandemic. Her clients include television studios such as Temple Hill Productions and Sinking Ship Entertainment. In addition to her award-winning original works, she has contributed to licensed properties with Scholastic, Disney, and many more. And I love the background that you've got there with all your work. I mean, it's actually quite an interesting body of work.
Well, thank you. Yes, I broke out my convention setup because it's been so long since we've had a convention. So I thought, you know what, I'll lean into the pretentiousness. That's what people like, right?
Totally. I mean, also, this is an amazing way to show how proud of your work you are, right? It's like you have this incredible body, and it's like, I have variety. Look at my variety, right? So I think it's pretty awesome. And the other thing I want to point out to our listeners is Megan has a graphic novel, correct?
Yes, I have a new graphic novel coming out in March.
Which is so exciting. And that's pretty quick, actually. Yeah, Swan Lake and the Quest for the Kingdoms is going to be released by Harper Collins in March of 2022. So not a huge wait for everybody.
No, it's on its way.
Oh, I'm so excited. As someone who loves to read graphic novels and gets really involved in helping with children's selection, it's one of those, just the joy is there. A new graphic novel is like a new piece of candy. You flip through it and you're just like, this is joy right here. And it's wonderful.
Opening this box is just like, oh, they're real.
Did it feel like Christmas?
It was very exciting. We had just moved into our new house and it was the first piece of mail I got here. So it felt like, okay, it's going to be a good era.
That's wonderful. That is the right way to approach moving into a new house and having a new book on the way. It's just, yes, this is everything I need right now. So Megan, where did your love of art come from?
That's a fabulous question. I would love to know. I've been drawing since I was really little. So at some point, someone must have said something encouraging. And I said, okay, that's my personality now. But I grew up loving newspaper comics like Calvin and Hobbes and Garfield and being really fascinated by those. And then as I got older and started stumbling across graphic novels at my local public library, I just got really into the art form. It's like the ability to make a film, but just on your own. And I love that power.
That's actually a really good way to describe it. What were some of the graphic novels that kind of inspired you in your art career?
Ooh, that's a great question. I really liked the Courtney Crumrin series.
Yes.
Re-released from Dark Horse, I believe. No, Oni?
Sorry. It's one of the two of them. That's okay. I put you on the spot, let's be honest. But no, those were great.
Yeah, those are beautiful. And I loved manga like Maison Ikoku and Full Metal Alchemist, just really interesting stuff.
Oh.
And it really blew me away how much depth you could get into your storytelling just as one solo person telling a story. And it was really exciting to me.
Yeah, no, Maison Ikoku is really special and totally underrated.
It's fantastic.
It is. I mean, I know Ranma is most people's bread and butter and their introduction to, Rumiko, but Maison Ikoku is magic. It really is.
If any of you watching people are like, oh, I love Inuyasha, this one has a real ending. Read Maison Ikoku.
Yes. Oh my God. The thing that she's never been good at, endings. This one actually has
This one lands it, and it's beautiful. It's fantastic. It's very, very retro.
No, you're giving me all these warm feelings about reading that in both English and Italian. So, so good. All right. What kind of educational background does one need to have to work in animation and in comics?
Ooh, so I have a lot of educational background, but most of it is not useful to my career. So
Interesting.
I hope everyone. To become a cartoonist, an animator, or a graphic novelist, it really doesn't matter where you're educated. It matters that you have a strong portfolio. So you want to have a good paper portfolio, you want to have a good website, and your work should be able to speak for itself. So you could do this right out of high school. You could do this after 2 degrees. As long as you have the skill, you can go into this field. I have too many degrees. I did a Bachelor of Arts in Fine Art at Windsor, and that was not useful. But I did minor in writing there, so that was helpful. And then I went on to do a Bachelor of Arts at Sheridan in animation. And so with that as my background, you would think I would have more jobs.
Aw.
No. But I'm really happy having gone freelance. I'm happy having left the studio system, because now I have full creative control over what I'm doing. I can decide about my stories and my characters and the way I want to present things. Whereas when you're working on television or film, it's collaborative. So you're working as part of a team. You don't get final say. You don't get to make big decisions. So this, to me, is the best of both worlds.
No, that's actually really interesting, and that's actually probably a very true point in a lot of ways. I feel like, again, animation being such a big field, you would have lots of hands in the pot, right? But that being said, I guess one of my curiosities is, in terms of your animation background, where have people maybe seen your work?
Oh, my student film did the festival circuit for a few years, and it was showcased by DreamWorks as one of the best student films of 2011. So it was out there for a little bit. After that, most of my work was for companies like Jib Jab and for mobile games. So it was smaller places where things needed to move. After that, I mostly went into comics, but because of my work in comics, I've been pulled in to do TV design on a few things. Last year, I was involved in designing the animated portion of a hybrid live action animated series based on a graphic novel that I can't name due to NDAs. But
Fair enough.
Very, very fun. It was really neat to get to go on set and meet the actors and sort of make the designs based on the kids playing the roles.
Oh, that is so cool.
Really neat. It was very, very cool to get to actually go be on set and like interfere in the costume department, and it was just really neat. Got to make some of the props. But what's happening right now actually is when they brought me on board for Swan Lake, they already had a media deal. So we already basically had a film deal written for this based on the script alone. So I was coming on board to create this visual, essentially, to accompany something that they've already greenlit. So that was a very different challenge.
That's an amazing accomplishment too, because very seldom, especially with kids' graphic novels and kids' books, does that happen, unless they really see it as being like the next coming of Harry Potter. They generally don't always do that. I've read so many like books and graphic novels over the years that I'm just like, this would be fantastic as a movie, or this would be fantastic as a cartoon, or this would be fantastic as just a television show. And often the things I love don't get picked up, and I get a little sad. Yeah. But it makes my job a little bit easier when I'm meeting children who want to find new books, and then it's like, here, I'm going to give you everything I have and the kitchen sink. Just keep going.
Yes, keep doing it.
That's why I love my job so much. And I mean, that's it. Meeting people like you and having these conversations are very important, because it's also one of those, you see how magical a book can be. And then when you see someone else's interpretation of it, it creates a whole different world and a whole different level of what things can be from something else. So I love it.
I love adaptation. I think it's one of the most interesting things to me, to see how like a disparate group of people or a disparate type of media, we can take the same story seed and wind up with something so, so different. Absolutely.
I mean, adaptations, there's just so many unique kinds out there. I mean, I love seeing stories just thrown completely on their heads. I always think of, for example, one of my favorites is Scotland, PA, which is a movie where it's Macbeth in a burger diner. It's a brilliant movie, and it stars Christopher Walken in it. And yeah, it is the story. Oh yeah, it's the story of Macbeth, and then there is a burger joint. but it plays out completely as you would expect the play to, just in such a different setting. So when you have adaptations like that, it reminds you that stories can be transformed in so many different ways, which sometimes you need, honestly. And I feel like, I'm sure with Swan Lake, it's the same thing. We all know the story of Swan Lake, but perhaps the interpretation in your graphic novel is very different than just the classical story.
So we had just a great time with this. Ray Terciero wrote the script. So they gave this to me with a full script already done. And they just said, like, it's Swan Lake, but it's kind of like Swan Lake via The Princess Bride. It's sort of a Frozen type adventure. And it is, it's just a fantasy road trip that they've set with all these tropes of Swan Lake around it. And it's just so much fun. And like, it's very Wizard of Oz, I think, would be a great comparison. Just everyone's on a trip and there's magic everywhere. There's things to deal with. There's villains and there's traps and there's sword fights. And when they told me, hey, do you want to do Swan Lake? I was like, okay, ballet, I can research this, sure. But it wasn't that at all. It was just action fantasy fun, start to finish.
And that's impressive, because that's the last thing you'd think of with Swan Lake.
I know, eh?
So all the more reason why I think we should all be excited to check this out when it comes out, because again, it's going to be so much fun. I think it's just going to be so much fun. Okay. So you've done some licensed projects for Disney. What was your experience working on a licensed property?
Ooh, so that's a whole different ballgame. When you're working on your own, you have full creative control. You can do what you want. Like, you can publish it yourself. You can control everything. When you're working with a writer or an artist team, you're a duo. You work together. You compromise. When you're working with a licensed property, you jump through hoops. They have final say on everything, and some of it is so specific. So working on the Disney properties was an interesting one because, of course, like, I was very familiar. I went to animation school. I know Disney. I have a degree in that. But we'd be getting basically packets from corporate telling us exactly what we can and can't do, color palettes, costumes. Like, okay, you can never put an apple in a Snow White story. Apples are traumatic for Snow White. Oh, well, there goes my apple bobbing birthday party plotline.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
It's very, very strict. It's very, very controlled. And so that means you do a lot of work that will never see the light of day. I might submit 40 scripts, or what we would call, come on, English, give me a word here.
It's okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
I got it. So I'd submit springboards, and that's a 1-sentence outline of what I would like to do in a comic. So it could be like, I don't know, Pocahontas goes fishing, falls in, Miko laughs. Like, okay. And I would send that in, and they'd say, okay, this is good. Yeah, expand this to script. I'd say, okay. And I'd turn around and I'd go home and I'd write a full script for it and submit that again. And they'd review that, and we might edit it, and we might change this and that. And then ultimately they might just say, we just don't think Miko would do that. It's unkind. And then that's it. Never sees the light of day again.
Jeez.
Yeah. So it was a lot. I might submit 40 springboards, 12 scripts, and get 2 approvals. So it's a process.
It sounds like licensed properties almost are a little cutthroat, in the sense that they only want characters to be recognized in one way, which I've heard that from a few people who've done different licensed properties in different fields. And they always say it's a bit of a challenge because you want to be authentic to the property, but you still want your own voice to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's tricky because in the case of most corporations, they don't want your fingerprints on it. They don't want people to look at it and say, that's a Megan Kearney book. No, they're supposed to look at that and say, that's a Belle book.
That's a Disney book. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's not about aggrandizing the creator they brought on. It's about maintaining the brand. But some places are very different. Like, you can work on other licenses where they're interested in showcasing creators. Like, you see the Steven Universe comics, and those are all very much whoever is drawing it, they are drawing it. And I think there's a lot of fun in that too.
I was going to say, yeah, the stuff that comes out of Cartoon Network, like Steven Universe and Adventure Time and Brave Warriors, whose stamp is on it for sure. And I mean, I've picked up a bunch of them just because there are certain artists and certain writers that I love. And I love those properties to begin with. They're so fun and inspirational and openly queer, which I adore. And I wish more things were like that. Whereas, yeah, I feel like working on a Disney product, I feel like, yeah, it is got to be much more restrained than dealing with Cartoon Network.
It is. It was really fun, and it was like, oh, that's a prestige button on my blouse there. That'll open some doors for me, and indeed, it has opened some doors for me. But I wouldn't say it's my defining work. I think what I am doing independently and what I'll go on to do independently is going to be the really satisfying work for me. So I've sort of had the corporate approval, and now I can go out and be like, yes, it's me. I'm acceptable and professional, and now I can do whatever I want.
Look how professional I am.
Look at this.
Look at me. Okay, so then what's your favorite work that you've done over the years?
I think my very favorite is probably my very first. Let's see, how long ago now? Geez, in 2012, I launched a webcomic. And it was just to teach myself to do comics. I thought, well, I'm not going to learn to draw a comic if I don't draw a comic. So I'll start a webcomic. And this was before we had Webtoon and before we had Tapas and before we had any of these platforms. So it was very much still the Wild West of webcomics. People would just find you by finding you. And I wanted to do an adaptation of Beauty and the Beast, my favorite fairy tale. And so, like I was saying, I love adaptations. So making this one was very much for me about stripping away what other adaptations had done, going back to the source material, and then pouring myself into it. And I had such a wonderful time learning to develop a story and learning to lay out a page and getting such wonderful feedback from my readership. It wound up being, I think, a 700-page series. It's available in 3 volumes. It's a beast of a book. It took me 7 years, and I think it was the training field I needed to become a professional.
What is it about Beauty and the Beast that you love and find so special?
I think when I was younger, it resonated with me because it is about a young woman who is moved to a rural place where she doesn't fit in, and she's an academic where everyone else isn't. And then I got older and realized, oh, I'm a depressed monster. And from there, the story writes itself.
That is the most interesting interpretation ever of somebody going, I think I'm this, but I might actually be. And I love it.
It was cathartic to explore. I didn't realize quite what I was doing at first, but as the themes of the story became clearer and clearer, it was very interesting to sort of explore that space.
That's actually quite understandable, I think. And I think when you're creating art too, there has to be a little bit of catharsis in it, right? Like you've got to kind of get everything out there, iron it all out. And it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be the standard that you've set for yourself. But if you get pretty damn close, I think you're aces, right?
My professor in school, my animation professor, Mark Mayerson, had a saying, and he would say, done is better than perfect. And that's been my motto throughout my entire career. Because it doesn't matter how perfect your incomplete project is, the one people care about is the one that's done. And so that's really pushed me forward, even when I feel like my skills are not there at all. It's really propelled me forward to think, if it's done, it's successful.
I actually think that is a wonderful saying that I think a lot of people should adopt, especially those of us who may be perfectionists and who have to keep going. I've learned not to be a perfectionist over the years as someone who was a open perfectionist, being like, this. And now I'm just at the stage where it's like, no, I can't.
Being done means you succeeded.
Yeah.
You made a thing. Is it a perfect thing? No. Was it ever going to be? No. You made the thing, you succeeded. You win. You get a fancy coffee.
Exactly. You get to reward yourself in any way that you want and that you see fit. So then I'll ask you a different question. What is the most challenging project you've worked on?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think probably I worked on a canceled project. And that was very challenging. That wound up being a very painful project because we had gotten so far in the process and came to a point of realization that we were being taken advantage of, that this was an unscrupulous publisher, that we probably weren't going to see payment, that we weren't being treated with respect. And ultimately the decision to cancel, it was very hard because it was a book deal. It was a 3-book deal. It was really exciting. It was really validating. And just realized the level at which we were being disrespected was very painful. And to cancel a series was very painful, especially when it was something that we were very proud of. I think it was the right decision, but it does hurt to look at all those years of research and work and think like, well, it just goes in a drawer, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's heartbreaking to hear. And that's a very unique challenge in a lot of ways to deal with, especially I think in your field where, again, any bit of work you do, you want to be paid and you want to make sure that it's something you can put in your portfolio. When you have something that's canceled, you can't really do anything with it.
Especially when we did the canceling.
Well, that had to be even harder, but that's, I think, again, sounds like it was the right call given, you got to take care of yourselves too.
It's true. I would really say if you've been in this field for any length of time, if you are putting out your own work and you've been controlling your output, that's wonderful. When you do get publishers coming to talk to you, that's when you get an agent. You want an agent to look over those contracts for you.
You have them to help you make the grown-up decisions of, yep, this is a fair deal, or, oh, no, this is not a fair deal.
You get someone else to be mean for you. That's what an agent does.
I hope your agent's very good at doing that.
Oh, my agent is fabulous. My agent is Susan Graham with Einstein Literary, and they are great. They will just go in there and fix things for me. They will look at a contract and say like, no, you're getting screwed here, and here. Let's change that. And it's just wonderful to have someone be my backbone for me.
Well, that's the kind of support you want when you're dealing with the legal side of things, right?
Yes, very much so. Yeah,
it's like,
don't sign anything without an agent.
It's like, I need my agent. I can read this and pretend I know what most of it says. Having the professional help of somebody else who's looking and going, yeah, no, this is good, but this is not good.
Yeah.
A bonus, right?
To have someone look at that paperwork and say, like, honey,
you're worth more than this.
The standard cost for a project like this is 15 times what they're offering you. You understand that, right? Like, oh no, I just got excited because I was going to do a book.
That's hard. Oh my goodness. I don't think I could handle that. I think you'd be too busy panicking and going, I can't make a decision because on one hand, work, but also I deserve to be paid my worth.
Yes, it's so hard because in a field like this, it's passion driven. No one comes to comics because it's easy or because it's there. People come to comics because they love storytelling and they love graphic mediums. They love visuals. And in an industry like that, and like animation, sometimes people can become predatory. They know that you care a lot, so they can manipulate your emotions and they can make you think you're not worth what you are. And it's hard to see through that sometimes.
No, absolutely. So on to our last question.
Oh my.
The last one is, what advice would you give anyone who is interested in working in the arts? So comics, animation. What kind of advice would you give somebody?
Well, I think I'd pull out Mark Meyerson's advice again. Done is better than perfect. If you can show people you can complete something, then you can show them that you are ready to work in this industry. And if that's an 8-page comic, great. That's better than a 200-page unfinished comic. If it's a 1-minute animation, great. That's better than 5 million pages of concept art on your Tumblr. I'm old.
Good old Tumblr.
I think really it is, you got to advocate for yourself. You got to put your stuff where people can see it. You got to keep a schedule so people know where and when to find you. And you just have to do it.
That is very good practical advice. And sometimes practical advice is better than, just do the thing, hope it works.
It kind of is the advice I'm giving you, is just do the thing, hope it
Do
works.
the thing. Hope it
Do the
works.
thing. Put it on the internet. Print it out in little copies and take it to the library. Distribute it at conventions if we ever have those again.
I'm hoping we have conventions again.
I miss them so much. Like, this is you and I. We're in Toronto.
Yep.
This is where CCAF happens. It's the best independent comic show in North America.
Yep.
And I miss it.
I miss it too. I think not having conventions, and especially not having TCAF, which is such a staple in our city, has been one of the hardest things to, especially for me as somebody who works in libraries. You know, I'm always looking for new things to engage with, especially to engage with my community, but also for myself too. And it's been harder for me to support my friends who are artists out there because I may not always know where I need to be finding them or how I can be the best kind of support. So yeah, I mean, I'm still mad the year Junji Ito came and I was like, I have to work. But Junji Ito. I know, but it's one of those, I do hope that for everyone's sake that we do get conventions back and that we can do them safely. I mean, TCAF was a lot of people. I mean, the amount of foot traffic, that could spread the plague. We don't want that. Megan, you've been such a joy to talk to, and thank you so much again for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with the Aurora Public Library.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm a huge advocate for libraries. I'm there all the time. So thank you so much for having me.
And we love people like you. Goodbye.
Bye. Take care.